You're listening to Behind the Lines, a podcast presented by inplayLIVE and powered by Pinnacle, the #1 sportsbook where winners play and never get limited. Go to pinnacle.com/inplayLIVE to sign up and get in the game.
Welcome in. It's Behind the Lines, powered by Pinnacle, purifying the sports betting industry for 100 episodes now. I'm Shane, he's Pace, and yes, today we are marking a milestone. It is episode 100 of Behind the Lines. So we're feeling a little nostalgic here, but we'll also do a little looking ahead. We'll grind out some futures with Gosu. He joins us in a little bit. But first, Pace, you're joining us from beautiful Hawaii. It looks absolutely gorgeous there. I've seen some of the videos you guys have been posting. It looks like you're having an awesome time. So I thought I would just kick off this show, since you're in Hawaii, by bringing a little home to you. Obviously not your home in Vancouver, but certainly your home in Canada. And I just thought I would share a little bit of what I'm experiencing here in beautiful February, Ontario. Here's a little look, Pace, at what I've been dealing with. I've been shoveling multiple times a day for about 5 days straight. The snowbanks, this is my home. This is where I live. The snowbanks here, you can see climbing the trees. You can kind of see my minivan poking through a little bit in that picture there. It's, that snowbank here is a good 7.5, 8 feet tall, maybe. These walls lining the driveway here, they're about 8 feet tall, dividing me and my neighbor. So while you're in beautiful Hawaii, this is what I'm doing over here. Thought you might enjoy that.
Jeez, life's all about perspective. I didn't need a greater reason to appreciate being here, but damn, you just gave me one. That is disgusting. So thanks, Shane. My flight home has been canceled.
Oh, really?
Well, no, I was looking at this photo. And
you're just saying, you just don't want to go home. Well, I don't blame you.
I'm not leaving.
I'm sure it's not that bad in Vancouver. Like, not like what we're getting here in Ontario, but the GTA has just been walloped for the last 5 days. It's just been insane.
How do you find time to bet on sports if you're shoveling that crap all day long?
Well, it's a good thing that it's been a bit of a slower week with the NHL and the NBA on break. It's given me time to go and take care of that. For everybody out there who's just listening and not seeing, watching us on YouTube, go check out the video on YouTube when you get a chance. But if you're in Ontario, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, we've gotten multiple feet of snow. And I've had to shovel so many days. So I'm just showing a picture of my home and my neighbors' homes and what it looks like in our neighborhood and the snowbanks piled up and that kind of thing. All right. Anyway, Pace, I thought I'd bring that to you. But today we are marking a big episode. It is episode 100 after, as I mentioned off the top. And, so we're doing a little reflection here, looking back on some of our guests. And stay tuned for the end of the episode. We're gonna play you. There might be a little montage in the making, so stay tuned for that. But I want to just go back. We started this about 2 years ago, almost 2 years, to the week. And we've knocked off 100 episodes in 2 years, which means we only missed a few weeks in that span, which is kind of impressive. I didn't think that we would be able to reach this kind of milestone this soon. I didn't even know that we would get this far. Pace, when we launched this, did you think that we would be here 2 years later still doing the show?
I'm ready for episode 10,000, Shane.
You're just ready to keep going.
I mean, when you start something like this, it doesn't really matter if it's 100 viewers or 10,000 viewers. It's about the purpose of why we started it, right? And you're really going to feel that, I think, when you watch those first 10 episodes. And if for whatever reason it is someone that's just checking us out for the first time and you haven't gone and done that, I would highly recommend doing it, because the entire intent of this was to get behind the lines, to show people some things about the industry that's going on, but ultimately is just to help people as sports bettors gain a little bit more knowledge and information that they can take to the books and take home with them to obviously make more informed, responsible, and hopefully profitable decisions, right? So I don't know. I mean, I think it's awesome that we're at episode 100, but yeah, I absolutely thought that we'd be here, and this is just the beginning. So cheers to you and to everyone, but yeah, let's keep it rolling, baby.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I think I remember early on us sort of sitting back going like, okay, what should we cover for topics, and sort of creating a topic list. And, we sort of get, 10, 15, 20 topics in, and I'm like, all right, this is a good foundation. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, what happens when we finish up these topics? Where are we going to go with this thing? What are we going to do after we get through these? But man, it really is it's an industry, it's a space, it's an ecosystem that just keeps on giving. There's so much moving, changing, happening out there, and stuff to keep up with, and there really is no shortage. And the other side of it is the amount of people we've been able to bring on, and the relationships we've been able to sort of create, people we've been able to meet, interview here on the show, learn from. People who have certainly helped me grow in my understanding of the sports betting landscape and ecosystem. It's just been remarkable. So, Pace, I want to go through at least a few of mine, and I want to get a few of yours, of course. But I want to start this off as we look back by just sort of mentioning a couple of key people off the top that I think were really sort of foundational for me, and maybe for this podcast in a lot of ways, given that we are powered by Pinnacle now, and that wasn't always the case. It's sort of a little bit newer in the last few months, but that relationship with Pinnacle really kind of starting with Jesse Learmonth when we had him on the show. That was a really sort of eye-opening interview for me to sort of see how somebody kind of navigated the inner workings of a sports book, and the fact that Jesse himself created the multi-view on Pinnacle, something I engage with almost daily. That was really cool for me to be able to sort of talk to somebody that created a piece of technology I am using all the time. It's pretty rare that you get that kind of opportunity, right? It's almost like, if you had a chance to speak with Steve Jobs or something like that, when you got an Apple phone, it's something that you just use all the time, and you kind of even take it for granted, like it's always been there. And to talk to somebody who created it, that was super, super cool for me. And then, of course, a few months after we had him on, we were able to have Paris Smith on, the former CEO of Pinnacle, who has made it, or who brought it to sort of what it is today. And she was fascinating as a trailblazer in the industry. So Pace, those are two off the top of my head that I thought were just, really sort of cool people to connect with, chat with, learn from. What about you?
Biggest impact on the podcast, Shane, not even a question. I'm talking to him right now. It's you. This whole thing is this is your show, buddy. It really is. And you do a great job each week of bringing the content that helps the viewers become better bettors. And I think on the note of topics, you're kind of mentioning the landscape changing. Obviously, there's the news and regulatory stuff and things like that we go through, but there's obviously our stories as well. Right. And throughout the time we started until now, and obviously before we started for you, but you've come from, a guy betting a few bucks here and there, trying to figure this whole thing out, to, probably one of the best sports bettors in the world. So, you are, right? So you got to give yourself a pat on the back. And I think our journey is continuing to be told through the lenses that we have is just going to be hugely impactful for people. So we're going to always continue to do that, whether it's navigating the sports books that we're dealing with, new strategies, the list goes on and on. So that's been hugely impactful for me to see and watch you grow. But also just your professionalism and the way you handle yourself every single week it's why we exist on this show. So you get the title and the trophy there.
Shucks,
but
thanks,
outside of you, all right, I'll tell the truth now, Shane.
Okay, there we go. Give the people what they want.
I think, I'll echo your sentiment with Paris and Jesse there. Jesse was hugely impactful, but I think the ripple effect from Paris is really what was so powerful, because she's the first person I ran into at BetBash. Immediately she turned around and said, "This is Andrew Pace from inplayLIVE," introduced me to one of the owners of Pinnacle, introduced me to, 3 or 4 other people. And then Adam Bjorn was right there as well. And of course, he, has been on as a guest, and he turned around and introduced me to 3 or 4 people as well. And that kind of started this ripple effect of having some pretty prominent guests on the show that have come and made an impact on the show itself, but also everyone getting to benefit from their expertise. So I would kind of put BetBash and the previous guests prior to that as the biggest impact to the show, just because that really kept us rolling with some top tier people. But also, I think that when you're just a show that, like, here's the slate this week and here's what we're betting on, I think it's a little generic, but we obviously have incorporated that to an extent as well with John. But I got to give a shout out to Gosu, to John as well, because he's come on and provided insight that we can then attack however we deem fit with the slate that's ahead, the week that's ahead, the season that's ahead, whatever the case. And I know inside and outside of the group, people have been able to profit from that information that he's helped us with. So yeah, I think just keep rumbling along here with giving people more tools and more strategies and ways that they can go make some money.
Yeah. Big shout out to Gosu, and we'll bring him on and get a chance to thank him for his work so far, and looking forward to growing his portion in the show as well as we sort of move through sports years or sports year and the calendar year as we go on. I'm glad you brought up BetBash, because I did want to mention Adam Bjorn, who you mentioned, but the other big one that I can't leave out is the interview with Spanky, and getting a chance to meet a guy, or at least interact with a guy like Spanky and chat with him for an hour ahead of this big event that he has created, BetBash. That was really that was pretty cool for me. And just to sort of learn from him and hear his story, but also just to sort of help create that relationship between him and inplayLIVE ahead of BetBash. That's invaluable, I think. Really, really cool. And if anybody, is interested, go back and have a look at that episode. There's tons in there. We talked to him, I don't know, for like a good hour and a half. I don't know if we ended up using the whole thing, but I remember talking to him for quite a long time. That was pretty cool. I want to bring up a funny one, though, because I want to take the our audience a little bit behind the scenes. We had on Pace George Riley Pedagakis. You remember that, having GRP? He goes by, I think, GRP wins on Twitter or something like that. He has his notebook. He tracks all of his wagers in a handwritten notebook. That was something else. I swear he was joining us like from his mom's basement. I think his mom maybe even like made an appearance I don't know if it was in the show or before we started recording or just after, but I think we had a moment where we saw his mom. Man, that was a fun one. I'll just say that.
So on that note, like, we can go a little behind the scenes here, right? And just so people do know, like, every single week I flip this thing on and Shane's like, hey, I'm going to talk about these 3 things today. And I'm almost like, don't even tell me until the show starts. Like, I won't know who's coming on. Shane does the whole thing from an organization standpoint, but Sabrina's the one that books in guests, and she goes through, a whole series of different methods, whether that's LinkedIn, whether that's Twitter, various people's websites, different experts, different podcasts that she's seen other people on, and she approaches them to bring them on. Now, Shane, you didn't know who this guy was, and on the episode, you compared him to Spanky and to Fats. Now, I think you learned that comparison may have been slightly flawed, but this guy comes on the show, and nice guy. I met him at BetBash as well. Definitely don't want to be on here bashing anybody.
No.
But he didn't know how to connect to Wi-Fi. So yeah, he ended up keeping us on in his pocket after he had recorded and driving to Starbucks to connect to the Wi-Fi. And all the while, we heard his conversations with his mom. He's talking about picking her up groceries, on the way back. So that one definitely was an entertaining one, because I think, Shane, you and I shot for maybe an hour to 2 hours, and we spent a solid 2 to 3 hours after that, monitoring his upload to make sure that he got to Starbucks. And he didn't do it. He didn't upload it.
No.
So Chesto had to cut it at some point because we never got the whole interview uploaded.
Yeah, it was something else. And yeah, I definitely made that mistake because I thought, here's a guy, he's in this circle, because I see that, he's interacting with these people and, he seems like, a guy who's betting professionally or at least trying to make a living off of it. And maybe he still does. GRP, if you're out there listening, please know that, we're just giving people a little behind the scenes look, not trying to bash you in any way. It was just it was an amazing sort of day to have you on.
If you live in your mom's basement and have to go to Starbucks to upload your recording, I'm sorry, like you do deserve a bit of a call out. So we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
It was funny. But if you follow him on Twitter, though, I think you'll find that he is kind of he knows what kind of bettor he is and where he fits in the sports betting space. And that's it's a much more fun place to be, shall we say?
Sure.
All right. Another one that I want to mention, Pace. Is and we're going to be having him back on. I know we've talked about him a little bit over the last few episodes, but I really thoroughly enjoyed having Ryan Hammer on talking about college hoops. I can't wait to have him back. The trapezoid of excellence was something that I based my bracket around to see how it would turn out. I did not win, but I did really well. And it was really cool to sort of see somebody model and track college hoops the way he was doing it. And then to sort of, have him plotted out on a graph like that and then be able to zero in on teams that were most likely to excel and to group them together the way he did. It's incredible. I can't wait to see what he's doing this year and what the trapezoid of excellence looks like this year. But that was a super cool episode for me.
Yeah, and again, that just speaks to guys that are super niche and experts in what they do. He's not even a bettor. He's an expert content creator and predictor of success in the tournament based on his metrics. Yeah, really cool stuff. And I mean, that just brings up, like, you bring all these niche guys, that have come on. The kid with the tennis kid was just brilliant. I can't remember his name. Shane, do you remember that guy's name?
Oh, geez, you're putting me on the spot. I'd have to go pull him back up. Oh,
yeah, but anyways,
I remember. I fucked up his name. I think I said his last name incorrectly. Berman. I think his last name is Berman, and I think I called him Brennan.
Oh,
that's what
there you go.
Yeah.
So and you still don't know his name.
And I think I know his last name now.
he was phenomenal, and that these Ryan Hammer, also a young guy, right? These young guys that come on that are really really brilliant with the things that they've created can be super impactful for all of us listening. So yeah, really awesome stuff. Great people that have come and helped us out here.
Now, I think, looking back here on 100 episodes pace, I would be remiss not to bring up the time when we had the first sportsbook on. And we've had people from sportsbooks on since then, several different people who work at sportsbooks. I'm thinking about the guy who, the founder of FanDuel. That was a great conversation that we had just recently. You could go back and have a listen to that. But Pace, the first time we had a sportsbook on, I think you'll remember this. This was definitely a memorable moment. Oh, by the way, our tennis guy, Isaac Rose Berman. See, I got that last name right. Isaac Rose Berman. Shout out to him. Yeah, very sharp guy. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The first sportsbook we had on was the team from Power Play. And I think that was an episode that got a lot of reaction, a lot of people sort of, wanting to share their thoughts afterwards about what happened, or about the sports book itself. And you had your own story, and the I just gave you the details moment, Pace. That was that's a definite moment in Behind the Lines history. For me anyway. It was really cool to have a sportsbook want to come on our show, especially at that time and what we were doing. There was a lot of back and forth behind the scenes. There was some booking and then some canceling and some rescheduling and some booking and some rescheduling, but they finally did come on, and they were pretty good sports about it all.
They went the other way after that show too. They went and clipped a bunch of players. We had a player, one of our members, get their power play account up to $40,000-$50,000. They closed his account, didn't pay him. Went to the Curacao lawyer and won the case. Thank God, he got paid. But
Wow.
power play
Okay,
went
great.
totally in the other direction, like totally in the other direction. They rather than using what happened on the show, which I mean, some people don't think is my finest moment. I couldn't control that I went to play on their site and that happened prior. Could I have told them in advance, hey, you did this to me in my account and I'm going to be bringing it up on the show? Sure. I could have done that. But at the same time, I wanted to see how the C-level management would handle a story like that. And they didn't handle it well. They didn't do anything for me. They didn't refund the money, nothing like, and they went on to basically find out who our players were, clip them all, and obviously in some circumstances try to not even pay them, to the point that legal counsel had to be involved. So because you brought that up, then I think about the other sports books that have been on or have been represented on this. And again, the story I've told of that sports book the last couple of weeks, like the difference of going, hey, this is a winning player and this is how we're going to treat that person, even though we know who that person is in our ecosystem. And then obviously Pinnacle, SX, they've been on, really awesome. Novig's come on. I haven't been able to play with them or really know much about them because we're in Canada, but we've had some, I'd say, the opposite ends of the industry on since then, and those are the obviously Adam with Planetech and Prime Sports with Joe Brennan. Yep. It's just the total other end of the spectrum, and those are the people we want to be talking to going forward. I mean, outing some sportsbook for not paying their customers is quite honestly, it's beneath us now because we can talk about those books on here, but to trap the CEO into a discussion is probably something we're not going to be doing again.
So many people who are in the space who are operators, but are doing it in a much more transparent, I would say, ethical way. It's terrible to hear that Power Play went and clipped a bunch of our players afterwards, and they had to take them to court, or at least get lawyer involved. Maybe it didn't go all the way to court, but get a lawyer involved to get their money. That's just disheartening. But that's a big reason why the show exists, to talk about incidents like that, to help steer people away from books that are going to treat winners a certain way. But then I also go back and I think about somebody like former FanDuel founder Nigel Eccles. That's who it was, Nigel Eccles. And so we had him on, and he straight up told you, you come and play at my place and win, I'm going to limit you, and he did it with a smile on his face, what do you expect? I really appreciated that. Right. So you have somebody from a soft book who's just being straight up with you, saying, you come and play here. You're going to get limited.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And, I mean, at least that transparency came through from a guy who truly understands the big picture, right? Yeah. And simply says this product is not the product that is going to be the place for you to play long-term, but these are the solutions that we do have in place. And he mentioned his exchange, obviously. And on that note, when it comes to, some of those robust discussions we have had with some experts about exchanges, have we seen that part? We haven't followed up with that part of the industry. Have we seen that part of, I guess, the industry start to see the handle that they need to succeed? Have we seen the live markets thrive? So players like us can actually go over to those sports books, those ecosystems, and get money down in real time on what it is that we want to be able to bet on. And I don't think that the answer is yes, but I also don't think that the answer is no either. So, we as a group, like as a collective, we have to support those channels as best we can. And sometimes that means, throwing a few bucks into an account and and seeing how you can navigate it and it not working out. And maybe you lose a little bit of money as a result, and then moving on. But I've also seen as a sports bettor doing exactly what I just said, where a few years go by and things have improved significantly. And I'm in really good standing because I threw a few bucks into that account and lost years before. I have a much more established account to go play. And obviously I'm not referencing an exchange right now, but that point being, take that approach, right? Like head over to an account, sign up, play a little, right? Don't play with the intent to kill on day one and see where that takes you. And I think as individuals, not necessarily like as a community, but as individuals, that process will really help you with long-term success and profit. So since we brought that up, we were talking about BetHog. I haven't been back over to BetHog. Have you, Shane?
No. I don't think I never used BetHog at all. That was one that I never even signed up for. I signed up for a bunch of them and tried using a few of them. Right. SX, of course, STX, which was here in Ontario. We had them on as an exchange. Novig I wasn't able to because they weren't available here. But no, I haven't used BetHog. Yeah.
So with BetHog specifically, when he came on, there was no live markets, but I signed up, threw a couple bucks in, made a couple bets, right? It's just always what I do when I hear about a new sports book. So Vice, go sign up, make a couple bets, right? See where that takes you. The list goes on and on. When you're going through social media and you come across an influencer, what site is that influencer playing on? What code does he have for you to go become a part of the degenerate ecosystem that he is kind of promoting? Slap a few bucks in there, lose some money, and good things happen long term because of that process. It's just worth exploring and trying out new things and seeing what's out there. 100%. Okay. Anything else that stood out from you from the past year? Anybody that you would really like to have back on, or anybody that you definitely don't ever want to have back on again? Well, I mean, Alex Monahan was on, and he's like one of the wealthiest people in the world now.
Yeah, he really is. The guy,
right? Like, I don't know what his distribution. I don't know what his distribution of that buyout was, but that's just a really cool story. Obviously we have an affiliate with OddsJam, so if you're ever interested in buying through them, you just enter code inplayLIVE for 35% off your first month, or inplayLIVE 15 for 15% off in perpetuity. Obviously, they have a great product and a really robust user base. I actually think to the detriment of the user. I think there's times where using their software is going to inhibit you as a bettor long term. But with that, I use their sportsbook screen, and it's phenomenal. And here's Alex getting bought out after we spoke to him for hundreds of millions of dollars, 10 figures.
Yeah, so his appearance on this pod must have had something to do with it. At least a little bit. At least a little bit. That's what when they were writing about the buyout in Bloomberg, they were like, after his appearance on the Behind the Lines, I can't even say our podcast name properly, the Behind the Lines podcast. Yeah, but Alex was awesome to have on, and obviously a crazy story since being on that them being bought out. So that was really cool. But Shane, honestly, like as far as standouts go, I mean, it's about not standing out to an extent. It's about each show having value week in, week out, where even if, it is a long listen sometimes, we cross over that hour threshold and you might go, geez, that I didn't get much that week. But that is the whole idea, is maybe you got something that you could walk away with and go, hey, you know what, I'm going to start doing this a little bit better. Or, hey, I didn't know about that. That's going to be a real game changer for me. And I definitely saw that at BetBash, having a few people approach me that were not members that said that, Shane, you and I had impacted them pretty positively when it came to betting. So even if it's just a new sports book we bring up, a new promo code to get you a bonus, or of course, like how to actually handle moving around some of that money and making some dough. That's the whole goal. So obviously we brought up some standouts here, but the whole idea is to make sure that each week is a standout to the listener to some extent. Yeah, exactly. And if, like you said, if we can leave all of you out there listening, watching on YouTube, wherever you're tuning in from, with even just one kernel a week, it absolutely makes it worth it. For me and Pace, I know you feel the same way.
So Shane,
right.
on that note, I got to ask you a couple questions.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I am, as we're recording this, 9 days clean.
9 days clean? Clean of what?
I've never ever gone 2 days in my life without making a bet.
Oh, bet free for 9 days.
I haven't made a
not
bet.
A single wager.
I don't even think I've made Lace and I make fun little bets all the time. I don't even think I've made one with her. It's like the ultimate no betting environment that I'm in right now, and a big part of that is obviously the break that's just ended.
Right,
the NBA All-Star break, and we have Canada USA tomorrow as this airs. But then the NHL break starts back up on Saturday, and I definitely will be betting on Saturday. But yeah, it's been a real break. So my question for you is, have you been betting these last 10 days or so, and how's it been going?
Yeah, I have been volume way down, mainly focusing on college hoops. I did place a couple of bets on the Four Nations hockey tournament, I guess, if you will. I guess that's what they're calling it. But I was actually thinking about this. It's interesting. 9 days is a long time, Pace, especially for somebody who does what you do. That's like that. That's I don't know if I should be congratulating you or giving you shit, because it's like, hey, wait a minute, that means you didn't do any work for the last 9 days. But no, you're on vacation and you should be enjoying it. And it's that's awesome. I actually didn't place a wager on Friday, Valentine's Day. And it wasn't because I woke up and intended to not place a wager that day. I just didn't. And then at the end of the day, I thought about it. I'm like, I didn't place a single bet today. And I couldn't remember the last time I had gone a day without placing even one wager. It had been, probably quite a while, a good year and a half to 2 years. Since I had a day where I didn't place a bet, and I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. So I guess
right.
There's that. It was like, yeah, it was kind of nice. So 9 days must be great.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up, because yesterday, which is Monday, because we're recording here on Tuesday, was the first day that I saw bets go through that I still didn't bother placing them. And what I'm referencing is inside the inplayLIVE community. Of course, we call bets in real time for the members to take. I saw bets being called because we were not on a live stream. So the reason why we live stream is because the dynamic movement of sports in real time oftentimes gives us a window of, potentially 3 to 30 seconds to get a wager in. So I'm actually calling the wager, I still haven't even placed it. And sometimes I don't even get in when other members do. But I saw some of those calls come through where I was like, okay, these are bets that I want to have. They both did win, and I'm referencing a couple wagers in both Four Nations games, which is awesome to see for the community. But it isn't FOMO for me. It's more like, okay, those are the bets that I definitely want my bankroll exposed to, and I'm cheering for the group and hope they come through. And I think I scrolled like hours after to see if they did, and saw that they both in fact did come through. So maybe some good opportunities in Canada USA, but again, reminds me of the Super Bowl discussion. So people get excited for this Canada USA game. It's our first best on best game that we've seen in the hockey world, and I have no idea how long it's been, but I know it's been too long. But this best on best Canada USA, people get all excited for. And Shane, me, we might be sitting there going, well, no opportunity came. It's just one game. We'd much rather our Saturday hockey slate where every team's playing. And we know we're going to get great opportunities on Saturday. So, as you gear towards these playoffs and one final game, it's not that one final game isn't going to be potentially awesome. It's just that it could be one that we pass on entirely, which can be extremely anticlimactic.
Yeah, it can be. And you never know. We could end up with a game like that. Pace, since we're on this, maybe it's time that we bring in Gosu and talk a little bit about the All-Star breaks for both the NHL and NBA, and I know he's got a lot of thoughts on the rest of the season ahead. So why don't we bring him in?
All right.
All right, welcome in, John. Gosu here with us now. John, we're just we're celebrating 100 episodes here on Behind the Lines this week, and in this episode, Pace was just talking about the Four Nations and the Best on Best tournament, and we were coming out of the NBA All-Star break, and you're here to do a little futures now after spending much of the NFL football season and the college football season doing the Gridiron Grind segment with us. So as we celebrate 100 episodes, John, it's great to have you back with us for this episode. It's been great to have you all along, providing value to our audience with some of your takes and analysis, and really looking forward to sort of carrying on with you in your segment throughout the rest of our episodes, whether we're looking at hockey, NBA, or whatever it might be. So thanks so much for being a part of this journey with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me around, and thanks for letting me stick around after football's over.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you, John.
We'll see.
Yeah, well, we'll see how things go. It depends on how these on how these sort of futures look and that kind of thing. Let's see.
The Rams didn't win the Super Bowl. I'm done with this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
How about that bet though? They gave him the best game out of all the games in the playoffs at our massive number there. You got to be pretty proud of that.
Right down to the very moment, that very last moment of that game, I still went, that was a great bet. I still say it. That was a great bet. They go on to win that thing if they finish that game in Philly, and they had the ball in their hands to do it. So
yeah, they had their moment for sure. It was a great wager. I really enjoyed that bet and cheered for that as we went into the playoffs and through it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the NBA All-Star break and the Four Nations Best on Best tournament here, guys. I want to ask you, because both of these breaks have been different from years past. So I want to get your takes very quickly, sort of, John, before we get into sort of your futures. I want to get your takes on what you guys think about how each of these leagues is doing it different this year, and who's doing it different in a good way and who's doing it different in a bad way, or are they both doing it well? John, why don't you go first since you just joined us?
Sure. I actually really enjoyed the Four Nations Cup.
Yeah.
I think especially from the standpoint of like how tight and competitive some of those games have been, like from the actual quality standpoint of the product of like what you're watching. It's like a game that clearly people care about and want to win, which is not something we get these days from an all-star product, basically in any league. So I actually really enjoyed that. I think the NBA tried some stuff this year that was, I think the games, those little micro games, were more competitive than the classic all-star experience, but it was just kind of terrible to watch. It was just a lot of standing around, not much going on. And then you played a couple of quick bursts of basketball. So I just found myself, I'd like missed the second game entirely because I forgot that I was watching it. So then I had to rewind it and watch it again. Because I was like, there was just a massive break between the games. It was kind of jarring in that way. Yeah, I don't know. The skills competitions and stuff around it. Like I think everybody, I think the 3-point contest is obviously the one that people, it holds up the best in the modern day, right? Where you still have all stars doing it and then some role players and stuff. Our bet didn't win that I called, but I've hit a couple winners in the last 5 years. It definitely pays for itself. But the dunk contest, if like people are too embarrassed to go against the G League player or like a YouTuber, then it's just not going to be interesting because the name recognition's not there. So it is what it is.
I love that. What a review. I forgot I was watching the game. That's just unbelievable. Pace, have you been watching it at all in Hawaii, or were you just like checked out completely?
Watching what?
Well, either any of this stuff, though, whether it was the skills comp and the NBA.
I didn't know the NBA All-Star game was any different. I just get clips of Kobe Bryant when he used to care this time of year, and I'm like, geez, that would be nice if people still cared. Whatever they're doing in the NBA and the NFL, it's like the biggest joke imaginable. I think the Four Nations thing is awesome. It's also given me more time off. So it's a longer break. When I saw the break time this year, it's like, I was like, oh boy, I'm going on vacation. You know what I mean? So I'm all for long breaks. I'm all for the 2 breaks coinciding and overlapping to give us a bit of a pause. As far as the formats go, I think the Four Nations or anything like Russia and Czech need to be in the discussion of hockey, just period. They just need to be there. They can compete with Finland and Sweden. So any best on best stuff needs to include them. I have no idea anything about this stuff if they're talking about doing it next year, years future, but I am definitely all for this going forward in the NHL. People will care more about tomorrow's game than they will the Stanley Cup final.
Wow. Well,
So,
I mean, you may not be wrong about that. There's a lot of people that are looking forward to that Canada USA game.
Right. And so I think from that, whatever the NBA needs to do to change some of this stuff up. You know, Kyrie Irving wants to play for Australia in the Olympics now because he was born in Melbourne. You know, get it going, get some competitiveness going internationally. They should, the NBA should give this a shot too. I know it's still the dream team and they're going to crush everyone, but I like the idea of what the NHL has done.
Well, I think they floated the idea of the U.S. versus the world. You know, I mean, imagine I think the 5 best players in the NBA are not American unless, you know, it's, I mean, you get Jokic, Giannis, Luka, Shea, and then I used to include Embiid in there, but then he became American apparently. Embiid he's
not in there anymore.
He doesn't even play anymore anyway, but you know, it's like, I mean, that's a hell of a team. So that guy could be really interesting, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Anthony Edwards is American, so he's the best player in the world. But yeah, aside from him, anyways, John, I want to bring up your futures before the All-Star break. I think that's important. You've already won a bunch.
Yeah, we hit a couple win totals before the All-Star break. We got to shoot a couple guns. We hit the Sixers under 51.5 wins, and we hit the Nets over 19.5 wins before the All-Star break.
Wow, let's go. Before the All-Star break.
That's pretty solid.
That's amazing.
So I think we had 10 win totals, 5 overs, 5 unders. One of each is already cashed. Got probably 4 that look really, really good right now. And then there's probably 2 that are basically dead. And then the other 2 are kind of up for grabs. So it probably looks like on our way to another solid year with win totals.
Love it. So you're looking at that stuff now for the rest of the season as well, right? And why don't you give us like a brief version of why you like what you like what you actually look at to help people kind of get a gauge of where you do identify value?
Yeah, so I keep track of the strength of schedule throughout the season. Like what I kind of break it into. There's a couple different ways to look at it. So I break it into thirds. The season is split into thirds in the NBA. So there's first third of the season is before Christmas. Then the second third of the season is between Christmas and the All-Star break. And then the next third is after the All-Star break. So I kind of break up, strength of schedule by those times, and that's kind of when a lot of the markets will reopen during some of those milestones or during some of those breaks. So like FanDuel, for instance, will reopen win totals a lot of the time during the All-Star break, which is interesting. It's normally a little too late to bet win totals. I don't typically bet a win total more than halfway through the season, just because the books have too much information. It's too easy to kind of price out what all the games are going to be in the future. It'd be like betting a win total in the NFL in week 13. So I start to look towards like playoff futures or player awards. So I think SGA is kind of running away with the MVP right now. I think he was up to like minus 700. I think he's minus 500-ish now. It's still, I think they're going to get the best record. We bet them to have the best record. I want to say at like plus 320 or plus 280 or something before the season started. So they're tied with Cleveland right now, but they have an easier schedule than Cleveland, and they've been trending much higher than Cleveland. So they have a much higher net rating right now, especially over the last month. So that looks really good. So it'd be tough to play anyone else other than SGA for that award. I think Jokic is the only other person that's not 100-1 right now or longer. That said, I do really like the value on the Nuggets, as you called it, in the Western Conference. So that you can get them at plus 650 right now. Their schedule's a little more difficult than Minnesota or Oklahoma City, who's also in their division, and some other teams out west. So they've got that working against them. But I do think they have the inside track to the 2 seed because Memphis actually has a harder schedule, and they're tied right now in the win column for that 2 seed. And I actually think that the Nuggets are trending much better right now. They've won 8 in a row. Murray looks really good. Everybody's kind of staying healthy on that team. And then they have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. So I really like them to get the 2 seed. So then it's really just home court until they play OKC. And I'm still not quite sure. I think OKC's ready yet. You always have to kind of.
He's actually the best player in the world, just so we're clear. He's actually
the best player. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We remember when it took like the combined forces of all the best US players to beat him in the Olympics with a bunch of scrubs,
yes,
right?
That's not too long ago. Yeah.
And I don't know, John, honestly, like I've watched the Wolves play them again in the regular season this year, and I'm like, do they just have the Nuggets number? Like they need someone else to beat them. And if they go to the final, I think they're the only team that can beat the Celtics.
Who, the Nuggets or the
Nuggets.
Yeah, the Nuggets. I just think that the value on the Nuggets, we're getting the Nuggets priced like based on what we watched in the playoffs last year, and I think the Jamal Murray we saw in the playoffs last year, and then going into the Olympics where he was actually benched for Canada. Down the stretch of a lot of those games, he's back to at least the last couple like month and a half, 2 months. He's playing like championship Murray, and then Christian Brown's gotten a lot better over the last year. So I just think there's the upside there with them at plus 650 on a couple books to win the West. Is a really good
to go to the final is the bet, correct?
Yeah. And Oklahoma City, it's just they're the most talented team up top to bottom, and they play the hardest night in and night out. But everybody plays hard in the playoffs, and I think you got to kind of at least prove it to me that as a front runner, you're ready to be the favorite. It's one thing to be an upstart and kind of even do what Dallas did last year with Luka. It's another thing to be favored to win. Like they're almost like even money to make the finals. Like it's pretty wild for a team that hasn't done it yet to be that favored. So.
It's kind of how I felt about the Celtics last year, but the fundamental difference was that the Celtics had been there twice, and they were progressing, and they were. You go through the history of time in the NBA, and when there's this team nipping that isn't over the hill yet, their time comes. That time was Boston, and I don't think Boston's going anywhere. I think they're going to continue to be dominant for the next couple of years here at least. But from the standpoint of being ready. I love Shea. Like I love him. He's Canadian. I'm Canadian.
He's great.
That obviously always has a little bit of a connection when you're in a sport that is more dominant by one country, where you're like, hey, that's our guy. And I know like my concierge at my building, I talk about him quite a bit. He is obsessed with Nikola Jokic because he's Serbian, and of course he follows his Serbian athletes. So Djokovic and Jokic, to name a couple. Shea was awful in the Olympics when it counted most. Shea was awful last year in the playoffs when it counted most. Jamal Murray too, but Jamal Murray isn't the guy that needs to be relied upon to be the guy. I love Shea. I don't know if he can get it done yet. I'd love to see him in the final, but from a betting standpoint, that value. I'm with you. Like I'm gonna break my 9-day hiatus here and go place that right after we finish recording.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead. Go ahead,
I was just gonna say, I really do want to see Shea carry a team through a 7-game series. Before I think you could say that he can be that guy. I think you've kind of nailed it there, Pace. We got to see him actually do it and be have the whole weight on his shoulders the whole time.
So the other team, if I have to go out east, and I agree with Pace that I think Boston is, the Cavs could win 70 games. I'd still say Boston is easily the team to beat in the East. But if I had to pick, and I probably will put a little bit on this, just kind of waiting for the right time to strike it. But the Milwaukee Bucks to win the East at plus 1,400, I think is a really big number for having who is probably the best player in the Eastern Conference in Giannis when he's healthy. He's been banged up this year, and he was hurt last year in the playoffs. He missed the playoffs basically, and that's they got eliminated. Now that team just keeps getting older. But what I really liked was that Middleton for Kuzma trade. Kuzma's been derided incessantly by the NBA community or like the media the last year and a half or so about how bad he's been in Washington and how little he's cared. But he really reminds me of, and people forget about this because it's such a weird nugget, but that's those Spurs teams that challenged the Heat in back-to-back finals and won one when they traded for Boris Diaw, who was basically like a clown show in Charlotte who just didn't care. And then he locked down LeBron James in the finals when they beat the Miami Heat that year and was like a secret weapon for them and did so much stuff. Kuzma's kind of the same type of player. He's like a role player, kind of can do it all, pass, score, cut. He can shoot a little bit. He can defend when he wants to. I really like that pickup. And I think it's just amazing what a change of scenery does for a talented player when you're in a culture that is obsessed with losing, like trying to lose night in and night out for multiple years in a row. So going to a place where you're actually playing for something again, Kuzma was a big part of that Lakers championship team back in the bubble. So I really like that. And plus 1,400 to have who's probably the best player in any series out there. They're probably going to be the 4 or the 5 seed. Means they'll play Cleveland in the second round. Much rather play Cleveland than Boston. So I think you could at least get maybe to the finals with a 15-1 ticket there and have a chance to hedge it out.
Wow.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
You know what's interesting is the Giannis that walked away with the trophy. We haven't gotten the crack that second crack because of his health. And we might not get it this year. But I've looked at the East and gone, well, it just feels like the Celtics just have a free path. Obviously, the Cavs are insane this year. And there never is truly a free path. But the Heat kind of had Boston's number. They always made things so difficult on them. And that ship has sailed. Right? So with Giannis, you go, is he back? And if he is, and he's healthy, 15-1, it's always about the number. So if you're sitting here and you're talking to me about some 5-1 number, I'm going to be like, 15-1. It has that ring where you're just like, sure. It's like the Rams, 40-1. You're like, I'm not saying no to that. So,
yep.
And now are we parlaying the Bucks to play the Nuggets?
Oh yeah, the exacta. Yeah, well, that'll pay well. It'll be like a little 70-1 there or something.
I'm sure there's a listener right now in this moment slapping something on that.
Guaranteed. Somebody's like, well,
whatever that pays.
Well, you got to sprinkle it.
Well, the thing is it gonna pay? What was it? 7.5, 7.5.
Yeah, 7.5, 15.
Is it going to pay that number? I don't know that it's going to pay that number combined. So that's what you always have to look at. If you're not getting, I can't do that math. That's too difficult for me. But if you're not getting that number, then why would you place it? That's being a degenerate versus seeking value. So
right.
Yeah.
So those are the two, like if I had to pick one on, either side of the conference, which I will bet, those are the two. And then the other award I like to look at right after the All-Star break is the most improved player. So going back the last 12 years, only 3 times, or no, actually only once in the last 9 years has the person won it who wasn't a first-time All-Star. So it almost always goes to a first-time All-Star. So you can kind of limit that sample size. And then I filter down to another set of metrics that define like that all these winners have in common and have in common with the year before as well. So I'm looking at 2 years of metrics around the players. So my filter comes down to a couple guys that are in the running. Cade Cunningham, who's a favorite right now. He's like normal juice, like minus 115. And then Tyler Hero is another one. You can get him as big as 20.0. And then Evan Mobley is the other one. He's at like 60 to 1. So those are the three like I'm kind of looking at. I think Cunningham's definitely the favorite, but I don't really want to bet something like this at like normal juice, especially at this point in the season. You could probably wait a lot longer and maybe like kind of get some inside info from the media, listen to some podcasts and stuff and maybe get a pulse of where the voters are. But I do think the Evan Mobley angle is an interesting one. I did like Tyler Hero so long as they were going to be in contention, but I think they just don't look the same now that Butler's gone. It looks like they've kind of just,
I think they're giving
they
up.
might, I just kind of see them being irrelevant now. Yeah. But Evan Mobley at 60 to 1 is really interesting because the Cavs may end up, there's a chance they have the best record in the league. I hope they don't. I hope the Thunder do, but they probably will still get the 1 seed in the East. And I think Atkinson's definitely going to win Coach of the Year. He's like a huge favorite for that right now. But to have like close to, like 65, 66 wins and that be the only way your team's represented, like I don't even think they'll have a first team All NBA player, right? Or maybe even a second team All NBA player. So it's always interesting how the media likes to sort out where they like to feel like teams are appropriately represented based on their records, right? And to only feel like on their ballot, they're only giving one award to this team that had the best record or almost the best record in the league. I think you'll see, I like to be optimistic that they'll find another way to reward them. And Mobley definitely stepped his game up this year and been a big part of what they've been doing. So I think the value at 60 to 1 is really good there. And then if Cade slides back to a plus 200, 300 or something, I've definitely looked to take him there. But I think I'm going to take a little Mobley right now.
Wow.
60 to 1 on Mobley.
Love it.
Okay, but before I ask you about the NHL, if you have anything there, can we just do a quick recap on the NBA? You've got the Denver Nuggets to win the West at plus 650. Yep. We've got the Milwaukee Bucks to win the East at plus 1,500.
1,400, yeah.
1,400. Yep.
I'm sure there may be one out there, but yeah.
Sure, but plus 1,400. Mm-hmm. And now Evan Mobley to win most improved?
Yeah.
Most improved at 60 to 1.
Yeah, 60 to 1.
Love it.
I can tell you, yeah, and these are big long shots. Like, a lot of people you might bet these numbers for a decade and never win one of these, but you only ever have to win one. So if I bet a most improved player at 50 to 1 every year around this time and I win one of them in my gambling career, I've made money.
Yeah.
So, I want to help people understand the prospect of value. And there's also value in getting out. I want to say 3 years ago, it was whenever Marcus Smart won the Defensive Player of the Year. I had bet Bam Adebayo at 150 to 1 around like Christmas time or maybe a little after, I think early January. He got all the way to minus 200 at one point. And then I started to feel the media sensation of, it's time a guard won it. And so I went and bet Marcus Smart at plus 700. And I essentially had locked in value on the only two people who had a chance for the media's eyes on these huge numbers, right? So a lot of the times you get a situation where it's just one or two guys and you can actually hedge something that's not even like a tournament style, right? Because it just simply can't be somebody else. So,
right. Yeah. No, it makes a ton of sense. You can always cash out. And geez, if you want, you go ahead, slap together the 3-leg NBA parlay, and now we're talking about a massive lotto.
I don't think we can do that.
I don't know that there's too many books that are going to take a decent sized bet on something like that. But you never know. All right. Anything over in the NHL?
Yeah, so I'm actually starting to get into modeling the NHL and looking at it similar to the way I look at the NBA. It's definitely I would say my understanding or my not general knowledge of all of the players in the league is not where it is with the NBA, where I could probably name like 1 through 10 on almost every team in the NBA. Okay. NHL, obviously, you have to go deeper than that. So there's probably things like I miss with like injuries or, somebody's slumping or whatever. But when I go through and I actually look at I look a lot at Pythagorean win expectation, which is something I didn't talk about earlier. Which for people out there, it's basically your point differential or your, goal differential across all the games you played. And it should project out. There's a different formula for every sport, but it should project out like over the course of 1 million games this is what your win percentage would be if you outscore teams by an average of 5 points a game in the NBA, or by an average of 0.3 goals per game in the NHL, right? So when I look at that for the NHL, I definitely see some outliers like with Winnipeg. So Winnipeg, to me, I guess it's probably because a lot of this is based on money that's in the market on teams to do well in the long run and what the preseason expectations were for teams, right? So Winnipeg is priced as like the 9th or 10th even best team in the NHL. When you look at like their Stanley Cup odds and their conference odds. But in reality, they have by far the highest Pythagorean win expectation. And they've actually slightly underperformed a little bit in the win column. I think they've actually won like 8 straight now or something like that as well, though. They're on another heater. But their Pythagorean stuff is kind of off the charts from where their actual price is. So that's the team that I identified as something that I wanted to go bet when I was looking and prepping for this. So I already took Winnipeg. I think I took them at plus 1,500, plus 1,400 to win the Stanley Cup, which I just thought was interesting for a team that has the best record in the league, and the data backs it up. So you don't typically find that in most other sports.
All right. So Winnipeg to win it all, to win the cup at 14-1, 15-1.
I know I'm betting against recent history and picking a Canadian team, but I feel like it's kind of the right thing to do as well. So
wow, we got an American picking a Canadian team. Love to see that. And you're taking me back to like grade 10 here with Pythagorean theorems and stuff like that. I'm I'm getting some flashbacks of possibly failing and wondering what's going to be what's next. Oh, I see summer school in my future again. Love it though, John, for thoroughly explaining that. Anything else on the NHL side, or is that it for now?
That's the only one that I had really pegged for having value. But I will say, like, for reference, so they have a plus 68 goal differential, the Jets do, and the Leafs have a plus 13 goal differential. So they're like, Pythagorean win expectation is like another 6 or 7 wins above the Leafs, and which is actually close to what they are in the standings. And the Leafs have shorter odds to win it all, which we all know why that is, right? Wow. That's money and market influence, right? But that's why there's value on these markets.
Yeah.
So,
hey, love it. So at 15-1, and we know the Jets are playing great. Would you even like wait till they maybe, because you just mentioned them being on a heater, would you wait for them to like take a loss? Or see if we get a loss in the next week and then place the bet at maybe. Do you think we'd get better odds maybe?
Yeah, there's definitely no shame in kind of getting in and building a position. It's like, right. Like a market, like, you people who do a lot of investing in the market will tell you, like, don't buy all of it. If you want to invest, you want 1,000 shares of Apple, don't just buy 1,000 shares of Apple, buy 50 now and 50 next week and 50, like it just kind of diversify when you're getting in, because you never know when there might be like a big boom or there might be something, you might get a better price later. So there's definitely no shame in just doing it, like setting an alarm on like every Monday. And it's like, I still like the Jets. Like I'm going to go buy more Jets. You know?
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. All right, cool. Well, there we go. We got 3 on the NBA side and 1 on the hockey side. John, absolutely love it. Thank you so much for bringing that to us and our audience. And, if you guys want to go out there, see if you can get those numbers, maybe you get a better number even. They sound like great value to me. Pace, anything from you before we say goodbye?
No, I super appreciate John coming in and grinding away with us. And like he said, like your expectation with this stuff should obviously be very realistic, because, these aren't calls like the Thunder to win the West at minus 110 that, is technically a coin flip based on those odds with the VIG included. It's essentially like Thunder versus the field with a coin flip where we're picking a side that you would like expect us to win, because our win rate would have to be higher than 52%, 53% to have an edge or ROI. The hit rate on these are going to be low. Oftentimes with futures, things like that, it is fun. There is an entertainment angle to it. Obviously, John's calling it with value backed behind it, but definitely take the entertainment approach with you as you put these in your pocket, because compared to what we do live, we're looking for very quick and instant wins, literally in real time, like much like a roulette wheel that was tilted in our favor instead of the casino's. Fast action with what we do. So this is very different from that. Put your entertainment cap on. I just bet the Nuggets while we were talking here, and I'm looking forward to cheering for Jokic and the best player in the world, and see if he can't get that second ring.
There we go. We made Pace break his 9-day hiatus on betting. There it is, broken. Bet placed. All right. Well, there we go, Pace. That'll be your longest streak probably for a while.
It might be my longest streak ever, to be honest with you. Well deserved. Happy to have broken it with Gosu's call, and maybe I'm really feeling it now. Maybe I'll place a bet on the final tomorrow. The Four Nations.
The Four Nations Cup. That'll be great. All right. Well, that's it for us. This was episode 100. So with that, a big thank you to Pace, of course, to Mark Rajman, the man behind the scenes at inplayLIVE, sort of pulling all the strings for helping put together this podcast and initiating it at the beginning. Big thank you to Sabrina, who brings on all the awesome guests that you guys hear and see on the show. A big thank you to Pace's brother, Brendan Chesto, as you guys know him, but Brendan Pace. Big thank you to him for all the work that he does on the podcast. He edits. There he is, making an appearance. Chesto, what's up, buddy? Thank you for everything you do to make this podcast happen, my man. And John, thank you so much for your participation, and to all the inplayLIVE pros that have joined us over the course of these last 100 episodes. We've had quite a few of them on. A big thank you to everything you guys do. One, that you've done for the show, but two, what you continue to do in the community on a day by day, week by week, year by year basis. Thank you all,
and the
much.
Listeners,
and the listeners, and of course the
crazy people that listen to us.
Exactly, all of you out there tuning in each week. You guys are a dedicated group, a very loyal group of listeners and viewers, and we couldn't be doing this without you, obviously. And so your support matters. Please continue to follow us, download us, share us with your friends, your community. Help us grow the audience out there as we continue to do what we do here on Behind the Lines. All right. With that, we leave you all with a look back at 100 episodes of Behind the Lines.
Let's check it out.
Welcome to Behind the Lines, a podcast brought to you by inplayLIVE. This is a sports betting podcast like no other. For me, when I think about analytics, I get a little flashback to grade 12 math and my eyes glazing over. And, maybe I'm a little bit stoned and maybe I'm daydreaming a little bit about the girl in front of me.
And then he goes, first 1,500 yours, and then, then the rest will split. I'll meet you upstairs in the men's room. It was a really shady deal. But
regardless of what the pregame total is, what the pregame spread is, all of that's out the window once the game starts.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the experience wasn't great, but I don't know the details. But I think,
I just gave you the details, Rob.
And I'm not trying to denigrate anybody. When you come here and you're an amateur, it's going to eat you alive.
Is there anyone in this world that evaluates college hoops as much as this dude?
No, I appreciate anyone? How do you kind of look at the current regulation landscape across the continent?
How long is your podcast?
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll have to excuse mine and Pace's eyes when they lit up with green dollar signs when you mentioned a 365 that's been around for 20 years. Okay.
I followed it, Shane. Come on.
Did you, Pace?
By 2004 or 5, I'd had thousands of accounts closed. My mum had 400 or 500 closed.
All these players that were historical,
right.
He didn't even understand who they were, right? And we were sitting there talking to him every day. I took my first phone call from Billy Walters.
Do what I call playing a half a middle. And people say to me, well, what do you mean playing a half a middle? I said, yeah, it's called a bet.
You couldn't pay enough of a sponsorship fee to get that to happen, Pace. But I love you anyway.
Bill Gates doesn't need to give you a fake vaccine with a chip in it to track you. I
think Pinnacle actually let me
not answer your question in another interesting way. Just because I brought it up.
I like that he's straightforward about it.
Yours is, I got to tell you right now, we'll limit you.
That's it.
But did you look at hedging that particular wager?
Hedging's for gardeners. Love it.
But you will hedge for $200 on your Cowboys +6. Hopefully, we got a little bit closer to purifying the betting industry.
All right. Well, I think that does it for us on this episode. Pace to all the sports bettors, to all of the sports bettors, millions of sports bettors around the world, and everybody tuning in from around the world, to all you sports bettors out there. Till next week,
keep beating those books.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join In Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.